Hit high and deep to left. Goodbye. It's a 3-run homer for Angel Martinez, and the Guardians have come all the way back to take a 7-4 lead.
Audio courtesy of Guardians TV. Got a nice win yesterday over the LA Dodgers. Needed it badly. Of course, you need every win. It's Major League Baseball, for crying out loud. And to talk about it, we welcome in Al Pawlowski. Not just that great win, but also the future of Lane Thomas with this organization. When we could see Chase DeLauter, when we could see a couple of other guys, when we could see David Fry coming back and Shane Bieber coming back, and hopefully adding to all this. Again, Al Pawlowski joining us from Guardians TV at Al Pawlowski on X, formerly Twitter. Al, thanks for joining us this morning.
Hey, what's happening, Ken? Good to talk to you guys once again. Let's have a good baseball season. Here we go.
Yeah, it's tough. I went through the gamut yesterday. I want to start with something big picture with you here, and Lima's going to roll his eyes a little bit, but what the hell? So I talked about Jose Ramirez, and because I got upset because there were people making the comparison over the first two games of the Dodgers series going, this is why. I'm going, guys, we'll never be able to afford Shohei Ohtani or any of these other guys here. It's not a comparison. I'm not making the comparison. They can only do with what they have. And I do sincerely believe the Guardians have done as well as they possibly could with what they can do. And boy, that just turned into a mess with everybody involved here. Because, with the constraints that have been put on this baseball team here over the last year, you had to shed some salary. They're doing the best they can. I know they're trying their best to keep their head above water, and I might just have to accept that for this year, considering where things are right now, and that we're getting ready for another conversation about a CBA with the Players Union.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like how many organizations can afford what the Dodgers can do? Well, two, maybe three. You've got the Dodgers, the Yankees, who are on similar footing when it comes to revenues, and then perhaps a Boston. But the Red Sox can't even do what the Dodgers can do. Heck, they traded Mookie Betts to the Dodgers when you think back to that. And the Dodgers as well, they've got 5 number 3 hitters. I was talking about this yesterday with Chris Jimenez. Think about that. Look at the top 5 in their batting order. All those 5 hitters are number 3 hitters on any other team in Major League Baseball. Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, who actually does hit number 3 for them, Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith. Those are all 3 hitters. Who has 5 3 hitters in their lineup? It's an embarrassment of riches. I was talking with some guys on the Dodgers coaching staff before the game the other day, and, they know it too. I mean, they're happy they have that advantage. This I will say, and it's a great point that was made to me too by one of them. They said, but you know what? Look at our pitching. We've got a lot of veteran guys, but also a lot of guys that are hurt. Clayton Kershaw made a nice appearance yesterday for them, but he's still trying to work his way back. Where, he said, again, great point. Look over at Cleveland. And you guys got a lot of young pitchers that are available when needed, that don't have a lot of miles on them. And when your guys do go down, you've got somebody else coming up. He said, your pitching situation in many ways is about the best in baseball. And that's true. So while, you don't have $500 million to spend on player payroll, you still have money that you can spend on player development, which Cleveland does. They spend a lot more than a lot of organizations do. And they make sure that the pitching pipeline continues. And pitching in the game of baseball, no matter the level, is what is going to keep you in ball games. And that's why Cleveland's been so competitive for the last 12 years.
Al, as I look at the profile of their team right now, it's something that, is kind of perplexed. I think a lot of fans here, they're minus 17 in run differential. On paper, they're not doing a lot of things that they were able to do last year. They don't seem to be as good of a team last year. They also have not been whole, and we'll see what happens with Lane Thomas. But with all that said, they are 5 games above 500. To me, they seem like they can play with just about anybody. So what would you say is this team's identity right now, a third of the way through the season?
Yeah, it's a great question, Anthony. And I would say, pitching as it has been, starting pitching, once again, you're seeing some depth there. You still don't have Shane Bieber back. You're still waiting on Means, who they signed in the offseason, which you may not see until the end of the year. Ciccone had to be skipped this past week, but he might be back this weekend. There's always somebody that can step up. As you said, play with anybody, keep you in the game. Kobe Allard did that yesterday for 4 innings as a starting pitcher. He kept you in the game. Then the bullpen came in and did what the bullpen typically does. Occasionally there's an outing where the bullpen, you look at him and you go, hey, this isn't a typical Cleveland outing. But that bullpen for the Guardians has kept them in games. Last year, they rode that basically to the postseason. So this is a team that pitches. It's a team that most of the time plays pretty good defense. You know, the one area that is lacking is the bottom half of that lineup. There's just inconsistency there. Sometimes guys are hitting, sometimes there's not. And that's the big difference right now. That's why the run differential is a negative, even though they're 5 games over 500. You know, they can't necessarily, if another team is hitting or if your pitching isn't on that day, they don't necessarily have the offense right now that can hit with them and hit you back into a game. However, because the pitching is pretty good, because the bullpen is so strong, if they're only down by a run or two, you know, sure, you can get that in the last 4 or 5 innings. Problem is, if you're down 4-0, 5-0, you know, 6-2, it gets later in the game. That's where it's tough for this team to come back.
Al Pawlowski joining us, Guardians TV. So Stephen Vogt said that Stephen Kwan was held out as a precaution. He says he expects to see him back on Friday. How easy do you take it on a guy like Stephen? Do you just kind of ask him every day, even on a day off, just to make sure? Because you're in one of the driver's seats of the wild card. It's only the end of May. Maybe it's a little bit early, but boy, you want to make sure that your head's nicely above water here. You don't want to let a season get away from you.
Yeah, but I mean, it's tough to temper that because you're right. And when you look at Cleveland's lineup, they've got 2 consistent hitters that you can count on every single day that are going to put together exceptional at-bats and probably get a hit. That's Stephen Kwan and Jose Ramirez. Now, you've got some other guys that are bubbling under, but they're not at that level of those 2 guys right now. Stephen Kwan is a guy that it depends on the injury. So if it's just, okay, my wrist was sore, you know, they're going to take obviously a look at it image-wise. If everything looks like it's in order, then he's probably playing tomorrow night. If it looks a little different, or if Stephen's like, yeah, it still doesn't feel right, then you're going to have to hold him out because, as you said, you can't lose this guy for an extended period of time. That's going to be tougher to replace for Cleveland than, let's say, believe it or not, than a pitcher because Cleveland's got so much good young pitching. So you've got to be careful with the guy, and hopefully he's ready to go tomorrow night against the Angels.
Al Pawlowski joining us right now on the hotline. So what would you say right now with the lineup the way it is, constantly in flux? Obviously, we're talking about Nolan Jones, and he was catching a lot of heat, and then he just had a terrific game. Do you see any stabilizing of the lineup, or do you think this is going to be something we're going to be kind of checking in on and tinkering with throughout the entire year?
You know, right now it seems like the latter than the former because that's what's been going on for a couple of months. And again, I'm looking for that consistency out of some of these other guys. I'm seeing players take steps with that. I mean, what Daniel Schneemann has done this year, you know, we've seen him take steps toward becoming a consistent hitter. There was a month or so in there where he was absolutely scorching the ball. He had a scorcher Tuesday night when he hit that 3-run homer. So I think he's one of the guys that could be a stabilizer. I think Gabe Arias is another guy that is taking steps toward that, becoming a stabilizer. Bo Naylor has put together a few better at-bats than last year. You can see his improvement. So there's some signs, but as far as saying, okay, here's our basically 1 through 8 or 1 through 9, you know, maybe a platoon situation in there, that they're not there yet, to be fair. You know, I like Manzardo's power. He's going to be a guy that's in there all the time. However, you know, they like to see him get the average up a little bit more, but he's driving the ball to the park. So that's a nice feature to have for your number 4 hitter, obviously. But I think it's going to be a situation where there's going to be some flux in this lineup still for a while because of that inconsistency in the bottom half and nobody, you know, outside of Kwan and Ramirez, and now maybe Angel Martinez. I think we're certainly going to see him in the lineup every day the way he's going. You haven't had that solid group of guys that have demanded with their play everyday playing time.
Jose Ramirez just continues to dazzle. The hit streak now up to 21 consecutive games. Al, I'm sure at this point you're out of superlatives to describe him. But how much does something like a hit streak, some guy who's done basically everything short of winning a World Series, do you think it matters to somebody like Jose? And does he just continue to defy, you know, everything?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Does he defy everything? I think he does in so many ways. I mean, you look at his size. He's not a huge guy. He's well put together, but think of what he is as a physical specimen. You see these guys. You think of great hitters. I mean, look at Aaron Judge. The guy could be playing in the NBA right now with his ability. You look at somebody like, you know, Freddie Freeman over in Los Angeles, or you look at Shohei Ohtani. These are all big guys. Jose Ramirez is not a big guy, and he's probably the most consistent hitter in baseball as far as an all-around hitter goes. So what does that mean? Well, he hits for average. He hits for power. He drives in runs. he hits line drives. I mean, a lot of his home runs are line drives, and he does it from both sides of the plate. That's pretty rare, too. You get a switch hitter, generally they favor one side. Generally it's the left. If you look at his splits, he's a pretty dangerous right-handed hitter as he is left-handed, and he's got, I think, slightly more power from the right side than he does the left, too, which is impressive. As far as the hit streak goes, I mean, yeah, I think it means a lot to him. You know, he's not going to come out and say that. He's a team guy. He says the right things, but you know, as well as he has hit the ball in his career, in a lot of places outside of Cleveland, he is still drastically underrated as a baseball player. This now, if he keeps this role and really puts him on the map and really shows what a consistent hitter Jose Ramirez is. And right now, I've seen him hit the ball hard his entire career. He is hitting the ball as well as he has ever hit it right now, which is saying a lot because he's had a great career. But right now, I think he's the most dangerous he's ever been.
Al Pawlowski joining us here on the show. He's on the North Homestead Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline. So what are we doing with Lane Thomas if we have to IL him for 2 weeks, 15 days, I should say? Who gets called up?
Great question again. I think, you know, you've got to obviously give a look at Chase DeLauder. That I think they would still like to see him, you know, have at least a couple, 3 weeks, you know, where he's healthy. That's the only reason he's not playing in the majors right now is his health. He's already there hitter-wise. He's already proven everything there is to prove in the minors. He's not really learning anything in the minors anymore, but you've got to stay healthy. And that is the one thing that poor Chase hasn't been able to do. So hopefully he's got a couple of weeks, stays healthy. You know, he could get the call. C.J. Kafis has been absolutely raking at AAA. 23 years old. You know, he's beyond his years. He's ahead of schedule. Do you bring up a guy like that? That's a great question. Primarily a first baseman, but could play the outfield. He's certainly a guy that's very intriguing. And then you take a look at Jonathan Rodriguez, who was on the team to start the year. He's had a very good season in AAA too. So I think those are your three options. If Lane Thomas does have to go on the IL, Rodriguez is the righty among the group, so there's a very good possibility since he's already been here. If it is Thomas to the IL, that's the guy that you would see.
Al Pawlowski here with us on the show. Well, should I take anything into it, or is it just maybe I'm thinking a little bit too deeply into it? Because I know that they've kind of switched around Jonathan Rodriguez out in left field instead of right down in the minors. Does that read anything of what they may think of him with the big league club and why we might not see him for Lane Thomas?
I think they just want to increase his versatility. I mean, like, you know, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. That's huge for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Having guys that can play multiple positions. So the other thing is too, it's like, okay, if they bring him up and they need to get Quan an off day, or if something happens like it did yesterday, he's feeling some soreness in his wrist, can we play him in left too and not just have him be a right fielder or just a center fielder? So I think that's what's going on with Rodriguez.
All right, now we got the news about Shane Bieber making that first rehab start Saturday. What kind of expectations should the average fan have about Shane Bieber?
So another great question, and that's, you know, one that a lot of the people can't wait to see him back, and I don't blame them. I think once he gets back, he's going to look an awful lot like the old Shane Bieber, which is fantastic. However, it's still a process, and I hate that word because I know so many people hate it, you know, process, but it is, especially when you're dealing with an injury. You can't rush him back. So he's going to get multiple rehab starts. Hopefully there's no setbacks. Occasionally there are, so that still could crop up. But let's say there's no setbacks. You're still probably not going to see him at the major league level for at least a month or so because he's going to have to make 4 to 5, maybe 6 rehab starts. You're going to have to ramp him up. So as long as everything goes well, and by well I mean stays healthy, I wouldn't look too much at the results. Because he's going to work on things. It's going to be a spring training for him. A lot of veteran pitchers, you know, in spring training, you look at their numbers, you're like, what is this guy throwing? Well, he's working on something, and maybe the hitter knows that a fastball's coming, and, you know, they blitz him, but it's not going to happen in the regular season. So you're going to see more of that from Shane Bieber. He's going to get ready. He's going to get ramped up. As long as there are no setbacks, I think you could look forward to seeing him in about a month, some point in July. And, of course, when he comes back, I fully expect him, as everybody does, to be that Shane Bieber he was before he had the surgery.
Al Pawlowski on the North Homestead Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram hotline. Al, thank you very much for the time.
Fellas, you got it anytime. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too. Al Pawlowski on his day off.